Hello and welcome to the Spark Sisters. So, our episodes do tend to be a little casual, a little free flowing. Today, that's especially the case. Flame and I often talk about the fact that sometimes when we meet, not to do a podcast recording, we're just talking, we think afterwards, oh, we should have recorded that. And today is one of those days, but we're actually going to record it. So this might be even more casual than normal, but we hope you'll stick with us and listen to a story that then becomes a conversation about authenticity. So I'm going to dive right in first, and then Flame, I will have some questions for you. So I had this thing happen recently where I was very convinced that others were judging a certain situation in my life and subsequently judging me for not handling it a certain way. And that really went to my core false conclusion about myself. And that conclusion is I'm stupid. And before I continue, and I realize that I'm doing this in response to today's sort of caveat culture, where you always have to put like a little asterisk and say, I'm not saying that it's untrue that once in a while I will do stupid things. We all do. But that does not mean that stupid is who I am, or even that acts of stupidity, she says stupidly, are commonplace in my life. It's just a false conclusion that I have about myself that comes back to haunt me on occasion. And it was definitely haunting me in this situation. So I was feeling really stupid and really judged, whether or not I was actually being judged. Some people may have been actually judging me. Some of that may have been all in my head. So I was just feeling very weary of those kinds of feelings. And that feeling was just multiplied by a grief that I'm currently going through, and that a grief that punctuated a rough 15 months in my life. So I thought, I'm done with this. I'm done with feeling judged. And the judgment was a little bit around, am I too hopeful? Am I too optimistic? And so I thought, well, okay, and I'm saying this with a wink here, I had like this brilliant idea that I could try to shift my outlook to one that was more rational and more stoic, one that would sort of set aside my hopes and dreams and, transform me into someone a little bit more Spock-like, more logical. And that lasted for all of 6 hours. What ended it was that, and I think I've mentioned this before, I can't remember. There's a deck that I use called Live Your Values. And it's an exercise about determining the values that matter most and least to you. And so I did the exercise with the intention of setting some new values based on my goal of living a more rational and sort of above reproach kind of life. And when I finished it, I did not recognize the person whose core value cards were set out in front of me. Like I felt ill and like tears were welling up in my eyes. And it's not that the values were bad. And it's not that the person who would have those values is not fabulous in their own way, but it wasn't the person I am. But that's not my authentic self. And even though I might be judged for that, although again, some of that judgment may just be in my own head, I think it's still worth it. So Flame, I'm telling you this story. I'm telling our listeners this story and the place I ended up to set the stage for a question that I have for you. Or maybe it's actually two questions. How does someone hold on to their authentic self when they're feeling that that self is not good and true and wise, that it will only lead them to disappointment and pain and judgment. How, when you're feeling like authenticity is not actually serving you well, how do you still be authentic?
Wow. First of all, thank you for sharing that story. I can totally relate. And second of all, great question. And I think it feeds up the answer for me, feeds on a thread that we've probably been saying the whole time we've had this Spark Sisters podcast, but I don't know that we've ever said it, which is that living authentically takes courage. Especially in a world like today where you can get on TikTok and you can see other people's lived experience in a way that you could not do 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. That capability can bring out a real comparison mind, or it can validate and empower us on our own authenticity journey. So knowing who we are is a tremendous act of inner freedom, of courage, of what's the phrase I'm looking for? Fortitude. Like this isn't for the faint of heart to live an authentic life, which is why so many people, it doesn't even occur to them to do it until the second half of life.
Yep.
So to more directly answer your question, so how do you do it when you feel like you're being authentic and it's getting you in trouble? Well, it's a good discernment point. I mean, who is it getting you in trouble with? Do you admire those people? Do you respect those people? Are those people worthy of passing judgment on your behavior? That's check number one. And check number two, is there something here for me to see? Are some of my values seemingly at odds and producing what I heard one coach call roller coaster results, right? That sometimes you're winning and sometimes you're not, because you're sort of back and forth inside yourself about what's good. If you're experiencing that, it might be a good time to check on what's truly authentic. But if you look at those things and you say, no, this is really who I am, that, for example, you are a truly hopeful person, and that giving up hope makes you feel sad and sadness and despair, then then part of authenticity is learning to disregard or heal the perceived judgment of those other people. What would you add to that?
Well, as you were talking, I was reminded of the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and her daughter subsequently wrote a song called We Can Do Hard Things that brings in an idea from the book about how we ask directions to places they've never been before, that we ask people in our lives for direction, or we perceive what their directions would be if we asked them, without realizing that our path where we're going is somewhere they've never been before.
They are not us.
They are not us. And, again, my sort of caveat culture is, yes, wisdom can come from other people. And yes, there may be times where we can learn from people who may disagree with how we're doing things. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that well, how do I put this? Well, I'll just bring it back to my own sort of example. I am someone who, based on the events of my growing up years, but I think it's common for a lot of people in a lot of situations, have not learned to trust myself, and that I'm always wrong and everyone else is always right. And so I'm always looking for that external validation, which really can mess with being authentic. So that's sort of what I'm thinking in response to what you said.
Amen. So what do you think? So now that you've been through that experience, that moment when you decided to sit down and sift through the cards again and see, okay, what are the values of this person who's looking through this filter? That moment before you did the exercise, if you could go back now and be a fairy godmother to that version of yourself, what would you say to yourself in that moment as you were about to embark on that exercise?
I think, well, one of the things that I would say is check in with your body. How are you feeling right now? There is definitely a lot of wisdom in the body. And it was heightened once I had done the cards, this feeling of being physically ill and the tears that flowed. But there was this tension of being out of alignment even before then that I was choosing to ignore. And so my fairy godmother would have said, no, sit down, don't move, don't speak, check in with yourself. And is what you're feeling the feelings of someone that's living in alignment with their authenticity or not?
And how do you recognize that tension? What is the quality of it for you?
It feels like there's a tension in my body, and it's in different places in my body, depending on circumstances, that just feels trapped. That pit in the stomach or that tightness in the chest. It's like this feeling of just being blocked and trapped.
Yeah. So I'm discerning a distinction for the first time here, that there's a tension like you're talking about, where I'm not really being true to my values. I'm not really being authentic. That produces a certain kind of, I like your word, trapped tension. And then there's another kind where sometimes we are stretching beyond our comfort zone in a way that actually is in alignment with our authentic selves.
Yes.
And it's still scary.
Yes.
It's meaningful, it's tense, but that has a different quality to it, right? There's that trapped feeling isn't so much the tone of it.
No, that's more to me like the butterfly feeling, or that even a little bit, the heart racing a little bit, like there's wanting to like move or like get going. Like there's a there's a sense of building momentum in the body. I think when it's that, get it, girl.
Yeah, I think for me, sometimes it's even like a confused energy when it's good. I don't know how to do this, but there's a will to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And on some vibrational level, there's an awareness that if I do it, it will be so luminous. It will feel so good.
Mm.
Whereas when you're talking about the out of alignment moment, I get to a place of despair, hopelessness.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to keep this up. It drags my energy very far down.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I experienced that as well. That low energy.
And so then the younger me, I would experience the low energy. To your point, I would just ignore it. And then I'd go eat some sugar, watch some TV, do some things to numb out and try not to think about it in order to deal with the tension. So this is part of why living a healthy life is so valuable, because when I'm aware of that tendency to go to those negative coping mechanisms, now I can catch those and say, okay, wait a second. What just happened here? Because I'm feeling tense and I'm about to numb it. All right.
What is that all about?
What is that about? And usually an answer is, not that far under the surface. Whereas when I'm up to something big, like I just wrote the biggest proposal career this week, and you helped me. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Very scary. What if I get it? That's one set of scared. What if I don't? That's another set of scared. There was knowledge that I am deeply capable of this, what I'm proposing to do. There was knowledge that it is going to stretch me. I'm going to need to be more creative. I'm going to need to have more support. Those 6 forms of energy that we've talked about before on the podcast, I'm going to need to use them all to deliver on the deliverables of this proposal. And that kind of energy, although I'm still scared, there's still tension between me and accomplishing the thing. It has a much lighter quality. New ideas keep coming in about how to accomplish that. And if they don't, I know who to turn to ask. And that ends up being a beautiful expression of my authentic self, even if I don't get the gig.
Right. Yes.
Living in that way is what life is all about.
Yes.
So would you say that this kind of experience where you felt judged, then started to judge your own choices, and then tried to make this like sharp course correct, is that an experience you've had throughout your life, or is that something that comes up now more at our age?
I think that the course correction feeling, I've really only had it a couple of other times. And it's usually when I'm feeling like, what is the point of this? What is the point of being authentic or being hopeful as an expression of my authentic self? I keep doing this and not feeling like I'm moving forward. So I'm just going to change things. I'm not It feels like the path I've been on is just so full of pain and suffering that I just want to remove my hand from the stove and just do something else. And the thing about that is, too, is it's not actually that surprising. Again, sort of based on the world that we live in, where we really are sort of told that for every problem, you just have to fix it. You just buy this thing, read this book, eat this food, drink this shake, listen to this person. And again, not that all of those things in and of themselves are not good, but as like, if things aren't going the way that you want to, then just fix it.
And that is such an American thing, don't you think?
Yes. Yes. Again, back to our rugged individualism discussion.
Yes.
And so I would say, and this is something that I have been learning about myself as well recently, is that what if I don't actually need to, in air quotes, be fixed? Yeah.
Yeah. What if there's nothing else to do?
What if there's nothing else to do? And what if my authenticity is just getting warmed up? There's this thing that we do, and we've talked about this before, about the way our brains are and how we have sort of evolved as a species. And there's this tendency to use pattern as a survival mechanism, which served us very well when there were daily threats to ourselves. There was the, fierce beast that, might end our lives. Yes, looking for certain patterns helped us in that way. But so often the things that we're dealing with today are not life or death, and yet we still apply those patterns to them.
Well said. And you're reminding me of another experience that is so familiar for me, and I can hear it a little bit in your story. The pattern is I'm going to avoid disappointment by changing myself.
Right. And I think for me, it was also, I have been in similar situations in the past that failed, and the failure must have been because of me and how I was looking at things. And so I had built up this pattern in my mind of these are the things that equal failure. Well, the thing is, I wasn't the same person in those previous failures as I am today. And you can say the same thing with successes. And I think when I say who I was and who I am, it also has to do with how authentically I'm living. And as I get more comfortable with living authentically, that disrupts whatever pattern might have been there. So I can't necessarily judge what's going on today based on the situations that happened in my life in the past.
It's true. Every situation is unique, and we don't always take time to recognize that, because then it would mean that it really was us doing something for the first time, even though we feel like we've done it a dozen times before. Right. And I think what you said is really brilliant, Jeannie, because then the call for us, if we want to live authentically, is to be with those feelings. For me, it's disappointment. For you, it's something a little different that might come up. I'm sad to say, learning to deal with disappointment is something I learned how to do at about 38, 39 years old. It would have served me well to learn how to healthily learn with disappointment quite a few years earlier than 38. 38 was a little old to still be stomping my foot when things did not turn out the way I wanted them to turn out. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I'm still learning it. At 48, I feel like I just have that's right. I can't stomp my feet about this. Like something else is going on here. So let's sit with that.
Yeah. And it's not to say I never stomp my feet, but at least I don't. It's more of an internal experience and less of a projection out on the people or situations around me. Because a lot of times the things I was disappointed about were under no one's control.
Yes.
They were, due to the weather, due to traffic, due to unforeseen circumstances. I didn't get to go to the Grand Canyon with my family because of a global pandemic,
Right.
No one's fault. So then the authenticity there is to heal that and to find people, therapists, coaches, whomever, clergy people to help us work through those feelings and see that, like you said, based on the family you grew up with. Well, for me, the family I grew up in, I have a very loving mother who really didn't want me to feel disappointed. She did everything in her power to keep me from feeling disappointed most of the time. And my dad's a very fun, loving, adventurous person. So, disappointment that isn't his deal. He doesn't tread in disappointment. And nevertheless, I felt disappointed a lot and wanted to avoid those feelings. So nobody did anything wrong. And the work, like you said, the work isn't to fix ourselves. The work is to say, oh, I have these feelings and they are not the whole of me. But if I can learn to relate to these feelings and these body sensations with as much love as possible, something miraculous will happen inside me here. I will become my own guru, my own loving parent, my own spiritual advisor, my own best friend. But first, I have to be present with all those feelings of judgment, or for me, feelings of disappointment. And that is emotional intelligence at work in real time.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So can I ask a backtracking question?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's imagine that you did the exercise, the values exercise, and you went, yep, these are the values of that person who isn't as hopeful or whatever. If you hadn't sort of lifted your head up out of that fog and said, wait, no, I feel terrible, I'm not going to do this. How do you think life would have unfolded for you from that new perspective?
I would have been lying to all the people that were close to me, and that would have affected my relationships.
Oh, wow.
And what I mean by lying to them is that I would be pretending that I was okay, even if I wasn't. I would be pretending that I didn't want certain things that I did, or certain outcomes that I wanted. I would be having a happy face on all the time and, not ever getting emotional around them. And it's being able to be emotional and vulnerable with the people that we love and care about that helps create connection. And so the absence of those things would have frayed those connections, I think.
I can totally see that.
And I did think about that before the card exercise, I thought, this is going to change my relationships. And I thought, well, I can be a good actress. Sure. I mean, ridiculous. But I was in it, Flame. I was just,
we all get
you
there.
know,
Yeah.
And again, and the thing is, I'm mentioning this for other listeners that may be going through something. I mean, you know this, and people that have seen some of my social media posts know this, that my stepfather died about a month and a half ago. And I've never had a parent die before. And so it's a new kind of grieving experience for me. And that experience is a multiplier for every other thing that I'm dealing with. Yes. So I am finding that I am, being more emotionally dramatic about certain things than I might normally be, because I'm just sort of so raw. Yeah. And so I at least have had the presence of mind to say, all right, you know why this is happening. Everything's heightened right now. And I don't know when that will stop being the case, but at least I know it's happening.
So this is an interesting inflection point on our authenticity journey, because neither of us, up until this happened, has had a parent pass away. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah, thank you, Flame.
And I know it's early days, but how do you see that this loss of a parent impacts your authenticity journey?
Well, that's interesting, because I was kind of thinking about this yesterday evening a little bit. And there was a lot that I admired about his life, but I never really asked him, like, how is it that you're living like this? Like, what, And so I think I've been having some comparison there and thinking, well, I never asked him. So all I can do is piece together the sort of clues that I have to maybe live more the way that he lived. And the thing is, he lived the way that was good for him. It's not the way that's good for me. I mean, there's overlap in things, of course, but even if he were still living, he couldn't tell me how to live with the sort of outcomes he seemed to have.
So is it
because the thing is,
go ahead.
I think he's actually probably one of the most authentic people that I've ever known. And I wouldn't have put it like that, sadly, until he passed away and I was reflecting on his life. Well, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm just so curious, because I heard that. I heard you saying that he was, and I've heard stories about him over the years. He was an incredibly authentic man and had some wonderful adventures because of that, and had several different iterations of his life throughout his life, where he was doing seemingly disconnected things. Of course, they were connected for him because they were always with him. So is it fair to say that him passing away, it opened up some kind of space for you to see him, his journey, and his impact on you more objectively?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And I think that's something that I will continue to sort of think about and marvel at. But I am glad that I have made the realization that his life was his life and mine is mine, and that I can be inspired, but his life is not a formula for me or anyone else to follow. It was his
That
own.
would be nice. Yeah. I wish somebody had a formula.
Right. Oh my gosh.
As a rule lover, I'm in. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the fact that he's no longer here living his authentic life in some way is calling you to yours?
Yes. And in fact, I think that, without ever planning it or orchestrating it, a couple of weeks after his death, he gave me one of the greatest gifts that he could have given me, in that I was so, is aggrieved a word? That's what it's going to be a word for the sake of this podcast. I was so racked with grief that it brought me to a place where I got very honest with myself about this thing of feeling like I constantly need to fix myself. And I don't think that it's an idea that had sort of bubbled up, but I hadn't really internalized it, or it was very blurry until I went through this intense experience of grief. It's like being so emotionally raw, opened myself up to observations that I wasn't willing to see before. Which I know sounds a little mystical, but there's no other way of saying it.
No, that's so beautiful. It's like the forced vulnerability of accepting the fact that someone you truly love and who you know truly loves you is no longer there.
Yes.
That forced vulnerability then bleeds over. I'm not sure, or softens.
Yes.
The energy of your heart, and then you could see things that you couldn't see before.
Yes. And and also that I can communicate in ways that I hadn't seen before. Is when I had that moment of realizing that, I was just having a really, really bad night. And I was just having a really, really bad night. And I had been texting with my best friend, and she was like, why don't I come over? And so she did. And I'm on the floor and I'm sobbing, and she's there with me. And I'm just talking about not just him, but just, in fact, it didn't start off talking about him, but just talking about all of these things. And she said, do you feel like this has come up? Do you feel like your grief for your dad has fed into this? And I said, absolutely. I knew it was, although a painful experience, it was his like one last gift to me.
What a gift.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe not the last gift.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But it's the gift we're present to right now.
Yes.
I have not experienced anything like the death of a parent, but I did experience the traumatic death of a family member several years ago. And I remember the initial grief was more like a fog. Mm-hmm. And then once the fog started to clear, that was when I started being open to the idea of radical forgiveness.
Mm.
And kind of in a parallel to what you're talking about, as someone who identifies as being pretty judgmental, at times having been very arrogant in my past, forgiveness wasn't really that valuable to me. But I couldn't figure out how to reconcile with what had happened in my life, which it was a violent crime. And I'd never been that close to anything like that before. And so somehow I stumbled upon this idea of radical forgiveness, and particularly the way that the Amish practiced it after the school shooting at the Amish schoolhouse. And it inspired me. And like you're saying, it was like the grief was the crack that let in this very powerful spiritual idea that is now a big part of the way I live my life. Mm. I didn't know it would be then. I was just trying to deal with the tremendous set of feelings that I did not have a tool set for. But some of my most authentic moments now are when I am forgiving people for things that in the past I would have held on to a lot of resentment and anger about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the forgiveness feels so much more in alignment with my true values of unconditional love, and recognizing that this human journey is messy with a capital M.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
This is some good work you've done on behalf of all of us, Jeannie. Thank you.
Well, I did, I was thinking about it this morning earlier, and I thought, this is not just my story.
Yeah. Would you characterize this as like a dark night of the soul kind of?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you must be feeling quite a bit lighter about it, given that you're willing to talk about it openly.
Yes. Yes. Well, and this is something that I've noticed in my journey as well, is that I think the more I've leaned into my own authenticity and my own intuition and my own feelings, the dark night of the soul is more like a night and less like a month, 6 months, longer.
Several dark weeks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is so interesting, isn't it? That our resilience comes back so much quicker as we learn to work with these kinds of big feelings, these negative experiences, this self-judgment. Yeah. We recognize it's all part of the journey.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You too. I love that. You always say it's all part of it.
It is. And that's been so hard for me to come to accept. You were talking about your major conclusion is that you're stupid. Mine is that this isn't it. So I do this real existential rejection of things, and learning to accept has been the most soothing balm for that. Mm-hmm. And I don't like it. Sometimes I'm like, I genuinely don't want to accept this reality. I reject this reality.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's for an hour, it's for a day, a couple of days before I say, okay, that is really heavy to keep pushing that away. Why don't I what if this was true? Then what? What would I do then?
Right. Right.
And then totally different ideas come in about how to move forward, which end up being much more authentic. Because if you're pushing off reality, then you don't have your full energy to do creative, loving things. You do twisted, warpy things, or I do
Yes.
twisted, warpy things. Yeah. Well, it seems like we should dedicate this episode to your dad.
Yeah. Yes. We should. We absolutely should. Yeah. Yep.
Yes, he loved you so much. And now I like to think that when, especially parents leave us, they don't, yes, their physical bodies aren't here, but their energy doesn't leave with them. Now it's just spread out everywhere. It's in every flower and every tree, every cloud, drop of rain, ray of sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore we can get to it whenever we need it.
Yes.
Whatever it is. And I know he was so loving. That was one of his incredible qualities. Mm-hmm. So that love is everywhere for you now.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Thanks, Flame. Thanks for listening to the story and having this great conversation.
Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable, not just with me, but with our whole audience, and demonstrating authenticity in real time. You've done something very courageous today and incredibly beautiful. I feel honored to have been present to it. I can't wait for next time.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, Flame.
Thank you, Jeannie.